All right, and good evening, everyone. Spin Ventures here. We are in Zephyrhills, Florida, Pasco County, and I am at the railroad depot here in Zephyrhills. This was an old depot that would use the Atlantic Coastline train line back in the early days of the railroad, and it actually would pass the train track is actually right now, see where the caboose is on that side, the train track, is the same line that the Atlantic Coastline used. And this was the railroad depot behind me, actually, right here, behind me, where passengers would be getting on and off the trains and for traveling back in the 1900s. And it says here on this plot, the Atlantic Coastline Railroad was the depot built in 1927, used for passenger and freight services. This structure represents the architectural style of the early 1900s. Large extended eaves, outdoor platforms, segregated waiting rooms. This building, constructed of red brick and heart pine, cost of $13,207. The site was cleared by workmen using scythe and grubbing hoe. Zephyrhills City Council accepted ownership in 1988 and moved west 200 feet. This area is known as Depot Park. Restoration was completed in May of 1997, placed by the Pasco Board of County Commissions and the Pasco Historical Preservation Committee of 1997. There's nothing inside, really. It's all storage. It's not an actual railroad museum, but there is a lot of history behind this railroad depot. And the way it is it became, like it said, it became Depot Park back in 1997. That's when it was, and it is a historical landmark. Uh-oh. Looks like it's about to start raining. I may want to take cover here, but here is the Zephyrhills Depot Museum. Restored 1927 train depot. A City of Zephyrhills facility. It's beginning to rain. So it just got a little pop-up shower. Little summer shower. We'll wait it out right here. But as it's raining, we also got this switcher where, of course, it's very faded out, but it was red, all red, right here for these two. Do not pass go, and of course this one was, I believe, was not blue. They had a green, I think it was a green bulb, green light. But it was yellow. I believe it was yellow. But of course it meant stop on northbound, southbound track, eastbound, westbound track. And so, yeah, that does smell like rain. Raining right now, not too bad, but I don't want to stand out in the rain because there's another plaque just beyond right there. There it is, right there, just about 100 yards. Not even 100 yards. That's probably about 40 yards. Probably about 40 yards down that way, just past my car. But it's raining right now. I don't want to get the camera wet. I'm fine, but anyway, I thought I'd stop off here, and just because I was literally just driving through Zephyrhills, I ended up having one of my friends from high school. We went to high school together back in Ohio, and he had messaged me on Facebook through Facebook Messenger, and he he was talking about, hey, he was just like, hey, we need to hook up sometime. I live in Florida now. And I was like, oh, where do you live at? He said, I thought he lived in Clearwater. I was like, oh, that's 45 minutes, because he wanted to go to Busch Gardens one day. And so what ended up happening was um, he went, or he had messaged me back. He was like, no, I live in Zephyrhills. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I put it in my phone. From my house to Zephyrhills is literally just under an hour. It's about 50 minutes. So I'm about 50 minutes from his hometown. I'm in his hometown right now, Zephyrhills, but I'm about 50 minutes from home. And I'm like, whoa, that's close. That's not that far at all. And so I was on my way back from Gainesville today, and I remember, oh, wonder what my friend's doing. And he had messaged back, he was at dinner with his family. And so I'm like, oh. So I'm like, well, let him have his dinner, let him spend time with his family, do that, and then maybe we can hook up here in a little bit, just to catch up and say hi. I haven't seen him in years. We're going to make our way now. It dazzled off, but it's not as bad now. It's not a downpour, it's sprinkling right now. My camera should be able to hold off with this, but we're gonna press on and take a look at the plaque, the historical plaque, and also talk about the DeSoto Trail. Now, the DeSoto Trail, standing along the historic route of the conquistador Hernando de Soto, his expedition through the Florida Native American territories, his quest for gold and glory. You are here. It was a partnership between the Florida Department of Transportation, the Florida Park Service, and the National Park Service. July 18th of 1539, Hernando de Soto's army crossed the nearby grasslands they called the Green Desert. Couldn't find no water in the lush green environment due to the intense summer sun. Many of our men have succumbed to the heat exhaustion. The next day, under a very strong sun, they went to a savanna where they arrived very fatigued. A steward of Governor de Soto, who was named Prado, died of thirst, and many of the foot soldiers were in much hardship, and others would have accompanied the steward of those on horseback, and if those on horseback had not aided them. Ooh. So if they were not helpful, they also would have died. The native path was De Soto's captive Indian guides knew of the many natural springs that existed in the area. In many cases, they would purposely lead his army away from drinking water, as well as villages to protect their people. If their deceit was discovered, the consequences were often fatal. The Conquistador Trail. It was an expert horseman. De Soto's personal secretary, Reginald Rangel, was handpicked to accompany him on the expedition. Rangel provided a first-hand account of the expedition, one of the four that make up the De Soto Chronicles, the one complete record of De Soto's experiences in La Florida, which is what the Spanish called Florida. They just put La Florida. When they had come over from Spain, and then of course landed in St. Augustine. That's where a lot of the history is made from the Spaniards and the English settlers. From De Soto, Now, of course, the map here is from Pensacola way up here all the way down to Tallahassee, then came back by boat in the Gulf and went and sailed southward. But on land, Tampa to Lakeland, then we're here in Zephyrhills, right outside of Tampa, really. Crossed into Brooksville, Inverness. That's where I was going to go today. But I surpassed that. And then through Gainesville, surprisingly, and into Lake City, crossed over into Tallahassee, met the Seminoles, and went up into Georgia. And so, and eventually, some of them went over to Savannah and settled there. Others went to Atlanta and Valdosta and up towards Kennesaw, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. And so, more or less, it was a trail that they were kept pushing back. That kept pushing back and trying to drive out the Seminoles, or the Native Americans, out of Florida. That was why the Seminole Wars took place in Florida. I have no idea why that guy honked. But, anyway. So I'm on the sidewalk. But, nevertheless, that's why the Seminole Wars took place throughout the state of Florida in different forts, different historical sites, and museums. So, other than that, back to the railroad. Now, the railroad, like I said, it was the Zephyrhills Railroad Depot, home of the Atlantic Coastline. So, the Atlantic Coastline, or the ACLR, depot was built in 1927, was used as a station for passenger service and shipping citrus, which is like oranges, fruits, and other goods, thereby stimulating economic development and residential settlement. Railroad stations served as a major community, commercial, and social centers, linking each of the small towns with the rest of the world. With its wide overhangs of high ceilings, represents the southern architectural style of the first quarter of the 20th century. Built at a cost of $13,207.21. The building was constructed of red brick and hard pine, featured segregated waiting rooms, an office, a freight room, a raised outside platform, and concentrate concourses. The ACLR trains traverse through Florida, serving Zephyrhills from Jacksonville and Ocala to southern cities including Tampa, Bradenton, and Miami. Famous trains such as the Orange Blossom Special, It's Raining Again, and Gulf Coast Limited were among those stopping at Zephyrhills Station. With assistance from the state and federal grants, the city of Zephyrhills acquired the depot in 1988. Restored it to its original appearance, October of 1998. It opened to the public as a local railroad and historical museum. Okay, so to include, I meant, on our tour, I don't think there's anyone. We are gonna go ahead and start to head out. I just wanted to kind of show you guys this railroad depot park. I'm not sure if it's even open anymore. It doesn't look like it. It does not look anymore. I can't see it through there we go. Right here. But who knows? I know a lot of museums aren't open on Sundays. And, so that might be one reason. But also, due to the fact that it's old, but a lot of old historical, old museums that were built in the 1900s, from early 1900s to late 1900s, are the most prominent, are the most interesting, because especially if they stick to their original form and their original shape, or original, cannot think of the word. They're not a state. Hold on, it'll come to me eventually. They're just original, from their original state. And that's what makes it more interesting, for me anyway, and other historical enthusiasts of any either Florida history or American history. Either one. It's very unique. And it just holds a special place in here, that I get to actually come out and do these videos and just find these different places. Literally, I just found this off of the main street of Zephyrhills. I didn't even have it on my Waze app or anything. I just came across it as I was driving on 6th Street, and it said Train Depot and Museum, and I made a hard left turn through the airport. And they also have a military museum, which actually is kind of interesting. I would like to find out, but anyway. But thank you all for joining me here on this short little spin venture and historical site of the train museum, history museum depot of the Zephyrhills Depot. And also, subscribe to Spin Ventures, drop a like on the video, and leave comments down below if you like trains, and, or, history museums, railroad museums. Been to a railroad museum, one that I know there are a lot of famous railroad museums out there, and, that are, of course, not specifically in Florida, but around the country. I know Illinois Central Railroad Museum is very, very popular. The Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum is very high on there. The Chattanooga Choo Choo in Tennessee. Anyway, thank you all for joining me here on this spin venture. And like I said, subscribe to Spin Venture, drop a like on the video, leave comments. And we will see you all on the next Spin Venture.